Hi, I'm Mindy Zwirn, and I'm the pastor here at Redwater United Methodist Church. I've been the pastor here since 2014, and it still surprises people sometimes to find out that I am the pastor here because I am a woman. I've been told most of my ministerial life that it's okay for me to be a preacher, for me to be a pastor, because the first person to ever preach the message of the resurrection was a woman, and that woman was Mary Magdalene. Well, that mostly comes out of the book of the Gospel of Mark, although it's also in the Gospel of Matthew and John. Mary Magdalene, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. She went and told those who had been with him and who were mourning and weeping. So Mary Magdalene was the first person to preach to the resurrected Christ, to preach of Jesus' resurrection. And that is a powerful thing. But I don't think it goes far enough just for us to acknowledge that she preached it. I think it's important that we recognize what it meant to her, what kind of a feeling that must have been. I mean, can you just imagine it? Because I can see her sitting there in a room waiting for the sun to come up the morning of the resurrection. Because you have to remember that Jesus was crucified the night before the Sabbath, which means that they didn't have time to do for him all of the things that they would have done for somebody that they had honored. They didn't have time to treat his body, to clean him, to bury him with any kind of respect, because the sun was going down and it was time for the Sabbath. So all of the things that Jesus had done for Mary Magdalene, driving out her demons and forgiving her sins and lifting her up to a new life, she couldn't give anything back to him after his death because she didn't even have time to give him the proper burial. Her heart must have been broken. So I can imagine her sitting there the morning of the resurrection, the morning after the Sabbath is finally over, just waiting for the tiniest amount of sunshine to appear over the horizon and let her know that it was okay for her now to go and do for her Lord what he deserved. I can imagine her sitting there feeling empty. I mean, she would have been crying earlier. She'd probably cried all day. But by this time, she's just empty. Her heart is empty. Her soul is empty. The only thing that she has left is this promise that she can keep to her Lord. I can see her watching the first glimmer of sunshine come into that open window, and walking over to the shelf and picking up the basket that she has prepared of the spices and the ointments that she's going to use on Jesus' body, and lifting it up and finding it too light because it's the wrong one. This basket is empty. So she picks up the prepared one instead. And she goes to her friend, Mary, the mother of James, and almost doesn't want to wake her up because her dreams have been so peaceful. Her sleep has been peaceful. But she needs to wake her up because it's time for them to go. They finally now can go to their Lord, who is waiting for them to dress his body and to put him to rest and finally close down all of those horrible moments that they had witnessed, the destruction of his body, to set him to rest. She has that chance. And for a moment, her friend opens her eyes and her eyes are just empty. She's forgotten. And then she remembers, and the two of them together must face what they have to do today. So they step out into the air, onto the empty roads of Jerusalem. Jerusalem will be busy later. It will be busy, but for now, in this first light of dawn, the roads are empty. They walk together across all of those stones and cobblestones and sand. And in the morning light, it probably seems a little bit lighter than they thought it was going to be. And their voices are a little too loud, even as they're just chatting. And for just a moment, in that big empty landscape, they're able to see a rising sun and a better morning. But they are on their way to the tomb, where they will find their Lord and his destroyed body, which they can now put to rest. When they come around the corner, when they come up the hill, instead of seeing the tomb the way that it is supposed to be with the stone rolled in front of it, they find it open, wide open. And And Mary Magdalene rushes inside, the one source of her comfort that she could now put her Lord to rest. And she runs inside and she finds it empty. With horror and dismay, she runs out of the tomb and tells the others, he's not in there. It's empty. And then in the next few moments, an angel appears and tells her that the Lord is not here because he has risen. And suddenly the world, the tomb is not empty. Mary Magdalene's heart is not empty. The whole world is full of the presence of Jesus Christ. He is not in the tomb. He is all around her, everywhere. Everything in her memory of his words comes back, and she remembers that he promised to return, that he has risen and in the world, and because of that, the world is no longer empty. As we are gathering in our homes instead of in our sanctuaries, as we are sitting on our porches instead of sitting out on the lawns of our churches, we have this mistaken belief that the world is empty this Easter morning. But it's not. It is no more empty than that tomb. That tomb is proof of the risen Christ. Because he lives, the world is never, ever going to be empty. I hope that this Easter, that you are celebrating a Christ that lives outside of the walls of your church. I hope that you are celebrating a Christ that asks you to sit in his presence and rejoice, for he is risen. And because he lives, we can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all hope is with us. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, we thank you for this incredible morning. We thank you for this chance to worship and praise you in our hearts, in our homes, in our yards, holding hands with our family, or even on our own. Because we know, Lord, there is no room we can enter that is empty of your presence. We know that there is no place that we can go where you are not. We know that nothing can separate us from your love. In Jesus' holy name, amen.